I have a special guest for you today, highly praised by global thought leaders like Deepak Chopra and Neil Donald Walsh. Gay Hendricks is a leading expert in the upper limit problem, how to live in your genius zone, and his extensive work on conscious loving in collaboration with his wife, Kathleen Hendricks. For more than 40 years, he has served as one of the major contributors in the field of relationship transformation and body mind therapies. Throughout his career, Dr. Hendricks has coached celebrities and top entrepreneurs like the founder of Dell Computers, Michael Dell. He has trained more than 800 executives at firms like Dell, Hewlett Packard, Motorola, and KLM. After earning his PhD in counseling psychology from Stanford University, Dr. Hendricks served as a professor of counseling psychology at the University of Colorado for more than 21 years. He has written more than 40 books, including bestsellers like Five Wishes, The Big Leap, Conscious Luck, and Conscious Loving. Gay has offered seminars around the world and appeared on more than 500 radio and television shows, including Oprah, CNN, CNBC, and 48 Hours and more. He has served as producer and writer on the Louise Hay movie, You Can Heal Your Life. Gay, thank you so much for living in your zone of genius and for being here with us today.
Well, thank you. It's entirely my pleasure. I'm really happy to be here and glad to connect with you again, Hannah.
Thank you so much. So, Gay, let's dive right in. I want to ask you, what inspired your journey to pursue a career in relationship transformation?
I think it was because I had a lot of personal experiences early on. I grew up in a small town of about 10,000 people that didn't have anything like a psychologist or a marriage counselor. There were mostly about 10 little churches in this little town. And so I really never got to experience what I now see happening all the time, the kind of miracle of transformation I see when I work with people, until I was in college. And then when I was in college, I took a psychology course, and it was kind of like some lights went on. I realized, oh, as human beings, we need to explore who we are in the world, not just what we do in the world, because it's our being that's just as important as our doing. And I didn't really have any training in how to do that, but then I did some therapy work with a couple of people myself, a doctor in New Hampshire where I lived at the time. And I found it opened up so much territory in myself that I just got kind of bitten by the bug of human potential. And so I started, actually, my first job, I work with juvenile delinquents. And I always say that working with juvenile delinquents for 2 years was really great because it helped prepare me to work with corporate CEOs later, many of whom were just overgrown juvenile delinquents that had made good. But I worked for 2 years at a boarding school for delinquent boys, and kind of cut a lot of my teeth there as far as my counseling skills. And then, of course, when I went back to get my doctorate at Stanford, we worked with a wide variety of people. And it just so happened that where I was getting my PhD at Stanford, our counseling center there worked with a lot of high-tech executives from Silicon Valley. And so I started doing work with Silicon Valley executives. That was in the early days of Silicon Valley back in the 1970s. But I got to work with people at Hewlett Packard and Intel, and Apple wasn't in existence yet, but a lot of the brightest people. And that's actually how I came to write The Big Leap, because The Big Leap is all about showing people who are already doing pretty well in life, how to take that big leap to their ultimate expression of their human potential. So I had the great privilege of working with these incredible, bright people. And then later on, like Michael Dell, you mentioned, and other people like that. So I still, to this day, I get to do every day what I most love to do. And it's what's in my genius zone, which is working with people, making big changes in their lives.
Yeah, you said something very profound, that it's not so much about who you are, but how you're being. Can you just share a little bit about that, the being part of it?
Yes, that's extremely important because our society and societies in general often reward doing, which is, a good thing because we want people
Yes.
to invent these little phones and we want people to, build our cars and give us legal advice and all of the kinds of things that human beings need.
Yeah.
That's in the world of doing. But really, who are you when the lights go off at night?
Mm,
Character is who you are in the dark. Being is who you
yeah.
are in the dark when you're not doing anything. Who is the you that's going to be dreaming tonight? Who is the
Yeah.
you that's going to be um, making your dinner tonight? And what we need to do is, first of all, we need to understand that we are multi-level beings. We're
Mm,
feelings, we're sensations, we're thoughts, we're beliefs. We are more than one dimension of human beings. As my
yeah.
favorite poet, Walt Whitman, says, I am large and contain multitudes. We are all large and contain multitudes. We
I
have a
love it.
personality and we have feelings and we have a soul and we have spirit. And as human beings, that's often what is missing is that being level, deep level of satisfaction that comes
Yeah.
from just being you and expressing your full potential.
I love it. I love it. I mean, this is such an important distinction that we don't have very often, but that is so important to our own personal development and growth and how we're showing up in the world. So I really love that you're making that distinction. Gay, in your book, The Big Leap, you talk about the upper limit problem, which is like your signature work. And can you share with us what is the upper limit problem and how does it impact our personal and professional life?
Yes, the upper limit problem is our tendency to sabotage ourselves when things are going well.
Mm.
How many times have you had the experience of like you'll go on a diet for a few days and everything will be going great and then you'll sabotage yourself. You'll go out and eat a half a pound of chocolate or something like that. I know you never do anything like that, Hannah, but the rest of us human beings
I'm
do.
sure I have my own guilty pleasures.
Yes, what happens is life starts going better, and then we get scared based on a lot of things that happened a long time ago. And out of that fear, we sabotage ourselves and bring ourselves back down to where we started. That's the upper
Mm,
limit problem. And in the big leap, I analyze that and show why people do that, and then show you how to keep moving to higher and higher levels of positive energy without upper limiting yourself. My students have abbreviated upper limit problem to ULP, ULP, like ULP, I did it again,
oh,
and
I
it's
did it
so.
again. I love it. I love it. So again, you talk about the fact that people limit their happiness. It's such a strange thing that we all say we want happiness, yet we're somehow sabotaging that or avoiding that. Why do you think that happens?
It's because we associate pain with happiness.
Mm,
Did you ever have an experience when you were growing up of, feeling real good and full of yourself, and then somebody says, be careful, take it easy. Accidents happen when you're too,
yes.
full of yourself. I remember one time with my daughter when she was about 6 years old.
Yeah.
I was riding my bicycle behind her bicycle, and she learned to ride her bike at a pretty early age. I remember, gosh, she couldn't have been more than about 4 or 5 when she learned to ride a two-wheel bike, and so she was a good bicyclist. So we were riding along the sidewalk heading back home one day from playing in the park, and I saw her riding along, and then suddenly she turned around to say something to me. And, she took her eyes off the road and
Yeah.
she crashed into a bush. And I
Oh,
remember she went from this one moment of just feeling so good about herself, turning around to say something to me, to all of a sudden crash. So a
oh,
lot of times something like that happens over and over in life. You get to feeling good and then something happens.
yeah.
And so that's why we need to begin to look at the upper limit problem and find out why is it that we keep sabotaging ourselves. And in the big
Mm,
leap, I break it down into several big fears. One is we sabotage ourselves because we're afraid of outshining other
mm,
people. we're
Yeah.
afraid of really celebrating for fear it'll take the light away from somebody else. So
Yes.
here's what I want to tell you if you have that fear. Put that one to rest, because if you shine, it just inspires other people to shine themselves. And
Yeah.
if you be your biggest version of yourself, it doesn't take away from anybody else because it inspires them to be their biggest version of themselves.
Yeah.
So that's that fear of outshining. Probably the fear that causes the most problems with the upper limit problem is what I call the fear of being fundamentally bad or fundamentally flawed in some way.
Mm.
Many of us, due to childhood things that happen, carry around a feeling inside that we're fundamentally flawed in some way. We've done something
Yeah.
wrong, or we feel guilty about something, or we feel like we'll never be able to measure up. That's that feeling of being fundamentally wrong or bad or flawed.
Hmm.
And I'm here to say there's nobody like that.
Yeah.
We all started out with a clean slate. We
Yeah.
all started out with the same ears and the same nose, and that we all started out, and then we were subjected to different kinds of learnings and programming and things like that. So you may have gone to one school and I went to another school a mile away, but we might be totally different in the way the schools worked. And so,
Yes.
but fundamentally, none of us are flawed. We are just human beings on a learning trip here. And the more you learn about yourself and the world, the more happiness and enlightenment and good contribution you get to feel.
Amazing. Amazing. You know, it's amazing the amount of layers that we pick up from our childhood that impact our lives and how we're being as adults. As you shared that story of how, she was having such a beautiful moment of exhilaration, and then she turned around, and it can teach a person that, oh, you can have a high, but expect the low. And I see that very often. We have those highs and lows where expand and contract.
Yes, I remember getting this thing when I was a kid. If I would feel too good about myself, or I would be bragging about, hey, mom, I made A on the spelling test today. Uh,
Yeah.
she would always say something like, pride goeth before the fall. In other words, don't feel
Yeah,
too
I've
good
heard
about
that
yourself.
one. I've
Yeah.
heard that one.
Yeah. I grew up down in the South where there's a lot of, old fashioned religion. And
Yes.
so a lot of people in my family were kind of those Old Testament people, that really.
Yes. I grew up in the same way, so I can testify to that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, we are
you and
taught
I
this.
both you and I both grew up in the tropics. I think I grew up in the tropics of Central Florida.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's as you're saying it, I can also see even in my own culture and in my own family how you were taught that the higher you go, the harder the fall. Those sort of like sayings that keep you feeling unconsciously, keep you sabotaging from really rising to the top because you're afraid of the consequences of shining.
Yeah, and I remember
Yeah.
my granddad saying something like, uh, "The higher a monkey goes up a tree, the more of his butt you can see."
Oh
And
boy.
his saying, don't get too big up there, because you'll just expose
Yes.
more of yourself. But I found in grown up life that each of us have these limiting beliefs about who
Yeah.
we can be. And it's our job as grown-ups to see our way through those old limiting beliefs and really
Yeah.
part the part through those, so that I always say you spend the first half of your life up until your 30s and 40 learning one set of personality. And then
Yeah.
after 40, you need a whole other personality to make it from there to 80, because a lot of times that push personality that a lot of us high achievers use to get where we want to get to in our 20s and 30s, that stops working as well when we get into our 40s and 50s. We need to
Yes.
balance that.
We're learning to shift the old way, the old paradigm. I know that it's sort of where I'm at also in my own journey, where I realize the kind of force that I was using as in my 20s, like this time in my life, and the amount of knowledge accumulated, it's like it's requiring something different. It's requiring something deeper, connecting deeper with, as you said, the being part rather than the doing part, which is really an interesting experience.
Yeah, Coach, when you think about it, you mentioned our book, Conscious Loving, that my wife and I wrote. We're
Yes.
just started our 41st year together. And so we've had this great relationship over the past 40 years where after we wrote the book, Conscious Loving, we got to travel all over the world. We've been around the world, I think, more than 30 times since then over the past 40 years,
Amazing.
teaching relationship skills. And one thing I've learned is that everybody's the same everywhere in regard to their heart.
Yeah.
We may be different in our minds, we speak a different language, or we have a different set of thoughts, but our hearts are the same. In other words, we all have the same yearning to connect with other people in a loving, respectful way so that we
Yes.
can get our own our own emotional needs met, not just our immediate needs, but our deep emotional needs met. And
Absolutely.
everybody's looking for that kind of connection. And I
Yeah.
always tell my students that the longest journey you'll ever make is the 12-inch journey from here down to the
To
heart.
your heart.
To use your mind for what it is. It's good at
Yeah.
logic. It's good at thinking up solutions. But to actually learn to use your heart for what it's good at, for love and
Yeah.
acceptance and acceptance of other people, not just of ourselves.
Yes. You know, it's really great that you're referencing that. And I want to get back into conscious love and your relationship with your wife, because I see your photos, I've seen a lot of your videos and work together. And there's such a beauty that radiates through the two of you, the dynamic of the two of you coming together, that I want to talk about here today. But let's talk about the genius zone. That's part of your work and what you're known for. You have a new book coming out that you're going to tell us about. What is
Yes.
this genius zone and how do we exist there?
The genius zone is what's waiting for you when you clear up your upper limit problem. That down
Mm.
inside of us, each of us has what I call a genius zone, which is it's you when you're doing what you most love to do and what makes the
Right.
biggest contribution. So doing what you most love to do is one of the most beautiful things in life. And
Yeah.
I've come from a place where I once spent very little of my time doing what I most love to do. For the past 30 years, though, I've spent almost all my time doing what I most love to do.
Yeah.
And it's like, I forget who it was said, I've been rich and I've been poor, and rich is
Which
better.
is better.
It has its own problems, but it's definitely better. And so I've spent part of my life not in my genius zone, where I was working for other people and using my gifts to make other people prosperous, but it wasn't necessarily making me prosperous.
Yeah.
Finally, I kind of got the message, oh, the more I do what I most love to do, that inspires other people to do what they most love to do.
Yeah.
And so I started when I first started thinking about the big leap, I was doing maybe 10% of my time in my genius zone. Let's say
Mm.
around 1990 when we first started going on Oprah and other shows like that.
Yeah.
Over the past 30 years, I've taken that 10% and built it up into now I spend almost all my time doing what I most love to do, doing what I'm doing right now, or writing books or appearing on shows and things like that. I think the best use of my genius is my ability to explain really complicated things in a simple way that allows people to use that material. So, for example, in I happened to one day figure out that I didn't love myself very much. And then I
Mm.
opened up in that moment to an experience of actually loving myself. And
Yeah.
goes back many years, even before I wrote The Big Leap. But
Yeah.
now I can work with people and assist them in loving themselves because I've done that myself and I know it can be done. I know people can go from not liking themselves very much to loving and accepting themselves. And when you do that, it opens up a tremendous amount of new energy that can be used to express your creative projects. So,
Yeah.
in
Let
a
me ask you,
way,
because sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I say in a way, the genius zone applies as much to your relationships as it does to your working world, because
Yes.
you want to find out how to be a genius in your relationships so that you can really be there for other people. And that's a great advantage of, like, my wife and I have been together for, 5 decades now, coming into our fifth
Yes.
decade. And in that period of time, you can really learn how to nurture another person and how to make them feel great. And
Yeah.
but it just takes practice. It takes some attention and dedication and practice, but every single one of us can learn how to have a thriving life in the
Yeah.
areas that matter most.
You talk about discovering that you didn't love yourself. And I think this is possibly one of the most breakthrough journeys any human being can make, because we don't like wake up and say, oh, I don't love myself. Like, it's not something that you automatically notice. Can you just share, like, from your work and what you've seen, some of the symptoms that really play out when you're not in the space of deep self love?
Well, one thing that plays out is physical symptoms. If you're not loving yourself, you don't tend to take care of yourself as well. That's
Yeah.
one thing. And also, if you're not loving yourself, that means you have an argument going with yourself all the time,
Mm,
because one part of you wants to say, hey, I love myself. I deserve to be here on this planet. I
yeah.
deserve to have my full potential accelerated and gifted into the world. But then there's that other voice that says, you're not worth it. You don't have a fit potential. Stay tucked inside yourself. Don't get your head up above the water, that kind of thing. So we have to kind of, in the second half of our life, particularly, turn off that voice and begin to celebrate ourselves. We say here that life really begins in 10 seconds of loving yourself, so
Mm,
that you have that moment. And I want everybody that's watching this or listening to this to have that, whether it's today or next week or a year from now, to have that moment of going, oh, I accept myself just as I am. I know
yeah.
I've got things I want to approve about myself, but at the deepest fundamental level, I deserve to be here and I deserve to have
Yes.
good things happen in life. And my new book, The Genius Zone, uh, the Big Leap, which came out 10 years ago, had a lot of instructions in it about how to get into the genius zone. And what I've done now is I've condensed everything down to, it's a much smaller book. A Big
Right.
Leap was bigger. This is a much smaller book because it kind of like goes zoom right to the
Yes.
center of things. That won't be out until June 29th, I think, is the publication date. So be sure to invite me back somewhere around June or July, and I'll tell you all about
Definitely
the new
would
book.
love to have you back, because this is a topic I know that everyone here is enjoying. I've been seeing the comments below. We have Tanya, Dr. Tanya from St. Lucia here with us. We have Jeanette, we have Lisa, Dara, Maria, and several others who are sending you lots of love.
Thank you very much. I'm going to need it because in a little while I've got to go off and play in a golf tournament. So wish me well, and hope I come home with a little
Absolutely,
money.
absolutely. So there's something that you do in the book, The Big Leap, and I know those going out and getting the book, if you haven't already read it, The Big Leap on Amazon by Gay Hendricks, you talk about the zone of excellence and the zone of genius. What is the difference? Because you just explained the zone of genius, but what is that zone of excellence that you also talk about?
The zone of excellence is when you're doing things you're really good at,
Yeah,
but they don't represent you at your best. They don't represent you doing what you most love to do.
yeah,
I've had probably 400 to 500 doctors, lawyers, people in professions come to one of my sessions or come to private therapy with me, and they say some version of the following story. they're all maybe 40, 45 years old, and they say, I'm making $400,000 a year. I'm in all the right clubs. I've got a boat, a house, and a car, everything I've always wanted.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like I feel like if I keep going this way, I'm going to burn myself out. I've
Mm.
got to find a new way to go about it. And what's missing is the zone of genius. What's missing is their genius zone. They've been stuck too long in their zone of excellence. And
Yeah.
here's the trap of the zone of excellence. You're good at something, so people want you to do it more and more. And,
Yes.
if you're making $400,000 a year as a lawyer, somebody comes along and says, hey, I'm making 800. And you go, oh, wow. Okay, if I work really hard, I can make $800,000 a year.
Yes.
Well, that becomes a real trap because that's often where burnout comes from. So
Mm.
your zone of excellence is about working hard, getting things done, getting a lot of approval, that kind of thing.
Yes.
But it's not about doing what totally nurtures you and what's in your genius zone.
The zone of excellence can be that trap. Do you feel that most people stay in that zone of genius out of fear? Because I get the feeling a lot of times the zone of genius can be a scary place. You can wonder, can you actually make a living there?
Yes. So the zone of excellence is often where people get locked into because they don't want to take that big leap into their zone of genius because there's something scary about it.
Yeah.
Like oftentimes, no matter where I am, I can be in Calcutta, India, or Beverly Hills, California, and I'll be talking about the genius zone and how to get into it. And
Yeah.
people will say, that word genius really scares me. I don't even think I have an ounce of genius in me.
Mm.
That's a common mistake that people make because, for one thing, let's take a moment and just celebrate the genius that we already are. There
Yes.
are 9 million species on this planet. And yet, you and I are in the only one that can have this kind of conversation. I mean, that's
Yes.
genius in itself. And here we are just having an amazing conversation about genius, and that's not going on anywhere else on earth. And so let's take a moment to feel how blessed we are in just that regard. So the second thing I want everybody to know is that everybody that I've ever talked to and worked with has been able to discover some aspect of themselves that they're an absolute genius at. And it's
Mm.
often not what you think of. And, like I had a dentist once that I was working with who had always wanted to be a poet.
Wow.
And his dad was a dentist. And when he started writing poetry, when my client started writing poetry in high school,
Yeah.
his dad was always there saying, okay, write your poetry now, but remember, you're going to be a dentist just like me and my dad before me. You're going to be the third generation dentist in this family. And so he was programmed to be an early
Yes.
dentist in his life, which he liked fine for quite a few years. But then that urge to be more creative after about 10 years of living in his zone of excellence,
Yeah.
he discovered poetry again. And he wanted to, when he came to me, he said, I want to quit my dental practice, sell it, and write poetry full time. Guess who didn't like that idea? His
His dad.
wife.
His wife.
His wife.
Yes.
And because she was a little worried because she realized dentists make a lot more than poets do. So he
Absolutely.
got a lot of pressure. So we came up with a compromise. And he kept doing his dentistry, but he blocked out an hour a day for his poetry. And so he
Wow.
would just take an hour and go back into the conference room of his office and put on a pair of earphones, listen to music, and work on his poetry for an hour. And he developed a book of poetry just by taking an hour a day and putting it into his genius.
Wow.
When people come, executives come here, or other professionals come here, when we in the pre-pandemic days when they actually came here in person. Now we
Yes.
work with them on Zoom. But when they would come here, one of the first things we do is just have them go in a room by themselves for 10 minutes and ask themselves the question. Just close your eyes, sit quietly and say, what do I most love to do?
Mm.
What do I most love to do? And then just reflect on that question. It's what we call a wonder question. When you're,
It's a what
some
question?
wonder question, where you're
Wonder
wondering.
question. Okay.
Yes, a wonder question. A wonder question is a question you really don't know the answer to, and you'd really love to know the answer to it. Like,
Right.
how can I have more love and abundance in my life? That's a
Hmm.
great wonder question because
I love this one.
everybody really wants to know that, and very few
Yes.
of us know how. Wonder is great though, because it's the quick ticket to your creativity. Because when you
Right.
wonder about something, I wonder how this works, or I wonder if I could invent a better water bottle, or why not make a cup that people can see through? I
Yeah.
happen to love cups that you can see through, by the way. You'll always see me
Wonderful.
sipping out of a glass cup. I probably have a dozen different shapes of glass cups in my cupboard that I've collected over the
Amazing.
years. I always say I'm really into transparency.
I love it.
You can even see the way I like my coffee here. I'm so transparent.
Yep. I love it. I love the wonder question because it's a lot of times we don't give ourselves permission to just stop and wonder for a moment. Like, what do we really want to connect with? What do we want to experience? What do we want to feel? Which is so powerful.
That's why it's so important to cultivate wonder in your life. To begin with some simple things, like here are a couple of wonder questions. When people come here for our $20,000 executive day where we're working with
Yes.
just one person, um, the first two questions we ask is, what do I most love to do? And the second one is, what do I do that produces the greatest amount of satisfaction and abundance per time spent?
Mm.
So, in other words, like for example, I used to have I sold my movie business. I had a movie business called the Spiritual Cinema Circle, a very successful one for many years. And then I sold it to a publicly traded company
Yeah.
back in 2008. And the whole time I was building that little company, I started it. You'll love this as an entrepreneur. I started it for less than $100,000 and sold it for around $10 million
Amazing.
in the course of 3 years. And
Amazing.
yeah, and it was done with wonder all the way because I
Wow.
trained everybody in the outfit to live in wonder all the time. Instead of
Wow.
thinking they knew the best way to do something, say, I wonder if there's any better way to do something. Or if I wonder if there's somebody here that I can call that knows more about this than I do. And so by creating a wonder-based organization, we
Yeah.
were able to move from a shoestring to profitability in 3 months. And
Amazing.
as an entrepreneur, I've started other businesses, but that's an all-time record for me to get to profitability in 90 days. And by the end of 6 months, we had 3 Wall Street firms wanting to put venture capital into us. And so it's
Amazing.
possible if you get the wonder creativity connection
Yeah.
open to get a lot of things done much faster than you ordinarily would. In fact, one of our guarantees we say here, once you come to do one of our seminars or work with us, is that you will get twice as much done in half the amount of time. And we
Yes.
haven't ever had anybody call us back yet and say that didn't work. And
Yeah.
so that's one of our guarantees.
I love that. I mean, I felt that in the heart space when you said it. Like, I really got excited about the idea of an entire team just living from that space of wonder. It feels so
Yes,
expansive, and it really is a different energy from, let me just do this task, let me
yes.
just get this done, but open
Uh,
up the space to expand the idea. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, I appreciate you highlighting that because
Yeah.
so many of us get so busy just going from one thing to the next thing to the next thing to the next thing that we don't
Yeah.
go. Hmm, down in here.
And yes, yeah, I really, really love this. So, speaking about heart space, I want to talk about the beautiful love story of you and your wife, Kathleen, who is also the author of your best-selling book, Conscious Loving, which got the two of you a spot on the Oprah show as well. What does it take to create a relationship based on conscious love in the way that you and your wife have beautifully done for 41 years, not just being like partners but also partners in success and business as well?
First of all, let me say a couple of things that are important that we learn not to do
Yeah.
early on. One is we were able to eliminate blame and criticism from our relationship. And we teach people who come to our relationship seminars how to do this. So there's no magical mystery to it. It just takes some practice. So
Yeah.
we eliminated blame and criticism. And if you take blame and criticism out of relationships, suddenly there's a lot more flow of love and positive energy. The
Yes.
second thing we did was we started being honest with each other about things we were feeling. Like I learned to, if I was angry, I would say, I'm angry, or I learned to say, I'm sad, or I'm scared. I learned to talk about my feelings, which as a man, I had never done before. I had to get outside my programming as a man because I grew up in the rough and tumble world, the
Macho.
John Wayne era, and um, so I learned a whole different way of being. And so I had to reinvent a person who could communicate about his feelings. So we
Mm,
eliminated blame and we learned to speak honestly about our feelings because it's a lot of the little things, just being irritated at something and not saying
yes.
something, or being hurt about something and not saying it. Those things mount up.
Yeah.
Another thing we learned to do a lot that everybody can learn to do is we started appreciating each other, and we appreciate each other out loud. And it's not just to think an appreciation, but like today, Katie makes lunch almost every day. She's a wonderful chef, but she doesn't like to cook but once a day. So she loves to cook lunch, but she doesn't like to cook dinner. So we eat one meal a day, basically. So she just cooked this fabulous lunch for us. And afterwards, I told her how fabulous it was and how much I appreciated her for making it. Went over, gave her a kiss. Thank you. So I do my best to be
Yes.
appreciative about what a lot of people take for granted. I
Yeah.
I watched my granddad. My grandmother cooked 3 meals a day for my granddad growing up. And I never heard him say thank you on one single occasion. So
Wow.
I want to go to the other extreme. I want to be so appreciative because I feel like it's a privilege to live here on planet Earth. I think it's a great
Yes.
privilege to be in a loving relationship. I want to celebrate that. I want to appreciate that every day of my life. And so learning to appreciate. So eliminate blame and criticism, learn to speak honestly about the simplest little feelings, and
Yes.
also do your best to live in a state of ongoing appreciation. So those are
Yeah.
some things. Those are all things you'll find in Conscious Loving in our other
Yes.
relationship books. We were on Oprah another time with another one of our books called The Conscious Heart when it came out, and it covers similar territory, although
Yeah.
it's a little bit more aimed toward couples who work together and that kind of thing. So if any of you work with your partner, that's a good one to read.
Amazing. I mean, I've already read about 5 of your books so far. I have 35 to go, plus a new one pending. And they've all been incredible. So I want to ask you to just tell us a little bit more about the Genius Zone, your book coming out soon as we wrap up today. And we'll have you back. I know that we want to know more about the book when it comes out. We want to celebrate this. So please tell us a little bit more about Genius Zone, what we can expect, when the exact date that it's coming out, and how we can stay up to date on the latest news on Gay Hendricks.
Good. Well, always you can go to hendricks.com, hendricks.com. That's kind of our jumping off place for all of our other websites and things like that. If you want to take any of our e-courses, those are at heartsinharmony.com. So those are good places to find out about us. Also, I'm on Facebook and Twitter and all. I think we have 400,000 or 500,000 people on Facebook, Katie and I. So we're all over the place. So you can find us just about anywhere. Let me tell you about the Genius Zone, though. The reason I'm so passionate about that is because it's kind of like, see, steering yourself, navigating your genius is not something that you get instructions for usually. Like, imagine trying to learn how to drive a car without an instruction book or any kind of driver training. You know, you'd be spending hours there and you'd be dangerous. Well, this new book, The Genius Zone, gives you a really simple set of instructions for how to dive into your genius zone every day, how to stay there, and how to organize your whole life out of your genius. So it's very quick, very simple, very to the point. I always say the big leap is a good, solid prop jet, but this new book is a Learjet. You know, it goes to the destination much faster.
The Concorde, if it had to come back. I love it. So I'm definitely looking forward to this book. I know that your work is life-changing and powerful. I feel so blessed to have met you on my journey and to be able to have met you personally as well and experience your work. Gay has the most incredible techniques. If you do any of his courses on his website and do his work, it is really different. You know, it's really taking you to that heart space, because a lot of us live from our head. I know for me, for many years, I was living from the head when I am really a heart-based person. And it really took relearning and some of the powerful techniques that I've also learned from Gay personally, which has created some big. Gay, I've truly appreciated you taking the time today. If you want to learn more about Gay, you can go to Hendricks.com. You can also head over to Amazon and get his book, The Big Leap. I know I've read quite a few, 5 Wishes. I've also read the one about learning to love yourself, which I think was one of your very early works. But what I love about this book in particular, it's also how your vulnerability. I love, you know, how you were also sharing the journey of breaking out of the mold of expectations of what it meant to be a PhD in psychology and write a book. Like, you were like abandoning the old rules and really setting your own pace. And I feel we need more of that. And it's because of the level of truth in that book that I'm also able to see my own self through your journey and to be able to learn the lessons. So, you know, I say always to this community, your self-worth really does determine your net worth. And the more work you can do on yourself, Gay has created an amazing body of works. He is my inspiration. I'm like following that legacy. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get there. Like 40 books. You're really like setting a staircase here, Gay. But
well, you're still a young sprout.
I'm getting there, and I'm really happy to learn from you. And I invite all of you to explore Gay's work. Thank you so much, Gay. And to all of you listening, as always, live the cultured life. Ciao.